And welcome to the 6th annual UC Irvine Grad Slam competition. This is one of my very favorite events because you get to hear about some of the incredible work going on around this campus. It's a very difficult task to condense very complicated research into just 3 minutes, but these students have done just that. My name is Brenna McQuaid, and I am your MC and speech coach for this event. And after working with these students and hearing about their research, this is going to be an incredible competition. To get us started, I would like to introduce Vice Provost for Graduate Education and the Dean of the Graduate Division, Dr. Jillian Hayes.
Thank you, Bree. It is always intimidating to speak after her. It's even more intimidating to speak after all of these wonderful students. So we have given that honor to Dan Aldrich tonight, and I get to talk to you before your expectations are set too high. So I'm very excited to welcome you all here tonight. This is the 6th annual Grad Slam competition, both here at Irvine and also system-wide. So for those of you who don't know, tonight's winner gets to go beat up on 9 other contestants from the other campuses and bring home the prize, as we did in 2015, the very first year of this competition. Irvine won. And the winner that year was Ashley Fong, who actually now is the Enterprise Collaborations Manager here at the Cove. So we clearly keep our most excellent students here and come back home. The idea of Grad Slam was really about how do we communicate our amazing scholarship in a very short period of time to a very wide group of people. We here at the University of California we are funded by and we are cared for by our community, and we need to give back to them. And one of the ways that we do that I find so special is to communicate our wonderful findings from inside the university out into the world. Now, we're not completely selfless. This also is really wonderful training for our students. So I was just hearing wonderful stories about students who, for the faculty in the room, when you get to that awkward part of the dinner at your job talk and no one has actually read any of the materials that you sent them, and they ask you, summarize everything you did for the last 5 years in 2 minutes. Well, our students can do that because they've been trained and they really can land those wonderful jobs that way. We also have people who now know how to give pitches for their exciting new startups. We have people who know how to go out and work in corporate America, in government relations, and other places where communication is so very important. And we are at a turning point here now in 2020 where we have more graduate students than we have ever had before. I am happy to tell you all that as of this morning, we have more graduate applications than we have ever had before for the next year. UCI is just on the rise in every possible way, and our PhD students and master's students who you are going to hear from tonight are examples of some of the best and brightest of our graduate students. I also want to give a huge thanks to the 14 other graduate students that you are not going to hear from up here, but you hopefully already got a chance to visit with out in the reception area. We wanted to really showcase for all of you the wonderful both breadth and depth of what our graduate students do here at the university. And so hopefully you got a chance to talk to some of them. They're all hiding out in the back, eating their well-earned dinner. We made them work while the rest of you were having drinks and dinner. So it's just a really wonderful time, and we get to show off all of this exciting research. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Bree, who, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is herself a grad alum from here at UCI. So she did her MFA here in drama, and we love that our alums come back and give back so much to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Hayes. So now I would like to introduce the wonderful individuals in front of me who will be judging tonight's competition. We have Gary Johnson, Director of Proficient. Yeah. We have Marcia Johnson, retired educator. We have Andre Berengian, CEO of CIE Digital Labs. We have Jennifer Friend, CEO of Project Hope Alliance and UCI alumna. We have Dr. Christine Nakamoto, a Dean's Leadership Council member. Greg Campbell, the Dean's Leadership Council chair. And we have Christina Shea, mayor for the city of Irvine. Thank you all for being here with us tonight. Now, judges, you have one scorecard for each contestant in front of you. Now, we want to make sure that you are judging according to UCOP's rubric and guidelines, so I'm going to read them directly. Each presentation will be timed for 3 minutes. There is a 3-minute countdown timer, which is visible to the speaker during their presentation. One presenter will be getting a physical reminder of the time remaining. Timing will begin with the first gesture, sound, or word. There will be a 3-second grace period. At 3 seconds over, 1 point will be deducted from the presenter's score, and an additional point for each 2 seconds thereafter. We will handle those deductions. Now, the judges at the system-wide finals will be mostly state leaders, business leaders, and politicians, not academics, and jargon is discouraged in favor of understandability. Thus, tonight's presentations should not be judged solely on academic merit, but on the significance of the research and the skill of the presenter to inform and engage their audience. Contestants may, but are not required, to use up to 3 PowerPoint slides. Contestants who do not use any slides should not have that held against them. After each presentation, the judges will have 1 to 2 minutes to score the presentations, while I ask each contestant a few questions so everyone in the room can get to know them a little bit better. And after, we will have somebody come and collect your scorecards. At the end of the competition, the judges will go into the deliberation room and we will analyze the results where the top 3 winners will be picked. The third place winner will receive $500. The second place winner will receive $750. And the first place winner will receive $2,000 and represent UCI at the UC System-Wide Finals at the LinkedIn campus in San Francisco on May 8th. Contestants, you are all amazing, and everyone in this room is here to cheer you on. And with that, I would like to welcome our first speaker of the evening. Please give a round of applause for Nia North.
No one would choose to go hungry, yet millions of Americans live in poverty. 38 million last year. That's 1 out of every 10 people. These people are powerless to get access to the resources they need, and they're often in such a state of need that their choices are taken away and they lose control over their lives. They experience challenges such as food insecurity, where they skip meals or go all day without eating. And so they turn to us, to society, for help. And in some ways, we're doing a fantastic job. Last year, government and charity aid exceeded $700 billion. That's a lot of money, and that's fantastic. But the challenge is, how do we make the most impact with this aid? And there is a lot of debate about this. Some people say to give cash or goods or services. And then policymakers start making decisions. For example, last year the president wanted to change the way the food stamp program was managed by taking away cash benefits and delivering boxes of food. But we need to ask, is that the best decision? And so researchers have been trying to find ways to optimize these programs. But they tend to only look at it from the program cost and goal perspective. And they're overlooking how the beneficiaries feel. And that's where my research comes in. I wanted to find a way to make a greater impact and help them regain some control over their lives. And so I found one important factor. Choice matters. I looked at food and clothing donations across hundreds of people. And when we gave them some choice in the aid that they were receiving versus minimal to no choice at all, it significantly changed whether they felt control and whether they wanted to use the aid they were receiving. We may often think that poverty is not that close to home or doesn't impact that many people. But this is the house I grew up in. See, poverty impacts 1 out of 10 people. And we have the chance to help these people who are powerless and often overlooked regain a sense of control in their lives by simply building a small amount of aid into these programs. We can make a greater impact. So let's do it. Let's give choice a voice in these programs and help empower the people in poverty. Thank you.
Thank you. That was amazing. So let's get to know you a little bit while the judges deliberate and fill out their scores. Did you always know you wanted to go into research?
I did not. As a first-generation college student, I came into college just happy to be there. And my senior year, a professor told me that I should consider getting a PhD. And I worked for a while, and it stayed in my mind. And then one day I discovered that the reason why I like being in marketing is because I want to understand consumers and the psychology behind it. So that drove me into research.
And now you're here.
Yes.
So what's been one of the most rewarding parts of your journey so far?
I think right now it's really cool. I'm mentoring some undergrad students. And I get to talk to them about how I got here and what I went through. And I think that that's very rewarding because it gives me a chance to help inspire them.
And just to go in a little slightly different direction, if you could have one superhero power, what would you pick and why?
I want to fly. I want to be anywhere I want at any point in time, and I don't want to have to deal with a 405. So
I think that's an excellent superhero power that everyone in the room can agree with. Thank you very, very much. All right, next, I would like to welcome to the stage Amanda McQuaid.
When you get sick, you need the immune system to help you get better. That's what happens when you get a cut or when you get a cold. But what about in the brain? In diseases of memory loss, such as Alzheimer's disease, people have known that the immune system will respond to this disease, but no one really thought that that response could modulate whether or not someone actually gets Alzheimer's disease. Until really strong genetic evidence in the past couple of years showed that 70% of risk factors for Alzheimer's disease are expressed in the immune system, or cells called microglia. So the immune system is really important in predicting whether or not someone gets Alzheimer's disease. The problem now is that we don't really know what the immune system is doing. Are these mutations making it hyperactive, or are they making it suppressed? This is going to be really important when we start thinking about developing therapies for patients. Do we want something that will help aid the immune system or something to sort of dampen it? So the way that I'm studying this is by designing twin cell lines. So the first cell line that I make will be a healthy cell line, or microglia. This would be like someone who doesn't have Alzheimer's disease. Then I take this cell line and I introduce just one Alzheimer's disease mutation. So that way we're able to isolate just the effect of having one change. What I do is I take these immune cells, expose them to a model of Alzheimer's disease, and see how they react. When the healthy cell sees Alzheimer's disease, it jumps into action and turns into what we call a disease-associated microglia, or DAM. This is important to help start to clear the Alzheimer's disease. But when the Alzheimer's mutant line is exposed to the same disease, these cells don't give a damn. That is, they don't turn into the disease-associated microglia. They're not jumping into action to clear. So this is really, really exciting data to get because it not only shows that these mutations do have big effects on how the immune system is acting, but it also shows us what we need to do for patients. For people who have this mutation, we need to work on activating the immune system so it can start to fight back like a healthy cell would. So now my research is taking these lazy cells that don't really care about the disease and trying to figure out different ways to make them start to care. Because when it comes to Alzheimer's disease, we do give a damn. Thank you.
So let's get to know you a little bit. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey here? Did you always want to be a researcher?
Yeah, so I was a huge nerd, sort of always knew that this would be the path for me. I was always into mysteries as a kid and figuring out the solutions to problems. So when we started to learn about biology in school, I was like, oh, this is great. Let's figure this one out. I thought I was getting into a PhD so I could understand everything about biology. And the higher I've gotten, the more I've been like, oh, we know nothing. Like, well, how does the brain work?
Sort of like life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's been one of the most rewarding parts of your journey so far?
One of the most rewarding things I get to do is when I actually get to meet with patients and talk with them. So many patients I've found will sort of know what Alzheimer's is, the dementia, but they don't understand mechanistically why it's happening to them. And so it's really rewarding to be able to sort of give back and let people understand what's going on with them a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go and why?
I think I would go to Japan. I've always been really interested, but I am going to a conference in Barcelona, so that's the new one.
That's still a win. That's
Yeah,
still a
I'll
win.
take it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Now I would like to welcome Brenna Biggs.
Driving up the 99 freeway through the Central Valley, you see fruits, vegetables, you can even start to smell the garlic through the window. We finally arrive at our destination, a dairy farm in Visalia, California. When we first arrive, you start to smell something else. And it's not coming from the cows, though, it's coming from these giant open ponds of liquid manure. These manure lagoons are incredibly common in the Central Valley. There's thousands of them, and their smell is not their biggest problem. These manure lagoons emit tons of methane and carbon dioxide. Greenhouse gases are okay in moderation, but when you have billions of people driving and cooking and managing dairy farms all across the world at the same time, these extra greenhouse gases can quickly tip the scale. They can lead to problems like health effects and even cause climate change. In order to prevent these changes, we want to better understand, monitor, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The state of California wants to do just that, but there's a problem. There's a bit of an uncertainty within the Central Valley, specifically at dairy farms. We're just not sure how much we're emitting and where specifically those emissions are coming from. Luckily, we have come prepared today to try to solve this uncertainty. We park our car and we unload about 100 stainless steel 2-liter canisters, just like this one. We're going to use these to collect air samples. I've already collected over 300 air samples at this dairy so far, and today we're going to collect more. So we unload all of our canisters and we pile them into a mobile lab. Kind of resembles Scooby-Doo's mystery machine, but instead of Scooby snacks, we have scientific equipment. So we load up all of our canisters and we drive our mobile lab around the dairy and collect air at different locations. For example, where the cows are breathing and eating and where the manure lagoons are. We cover this dairy with our sampling. Once all of the samples are collected, we drive back to the lab here in Irvine where I analyze the canisters to figure out how much methane, carbon dioxide, and other gases were being burped and bubbled up at the dairy farm. With this information, I can report back to dairy operators that they know the best way to reduce emissions. For example, if I find that most of the emissions are coming out of the manure lagoons, which they are, then dairy operators will be able to install bioreactors. These are great because not only do they prevent and trap greenhouse gases from entering our atmosphere, they can also convert the greenhouse gases into electricity. This solution works not only for California, but also nationwide. With my project, I hope to not only power, but empower local communities in California to make this a greener and cleaner place to live. Thank you.
So, did you always know you wanted to go to a dairy farm and collect things?
Oh yes, it's been my dream
I
ever
had a
since I was a girl.
How did this start?
So this actually started as part of being in the lab that I'm in. We do collect air samples all across the world. We do get to go to some really cool places as well, international places. We collect a lot of samples with NASA. But for my research, I am going to dairy farms and landfills and measuring the air around those facilities.
Same thing.
Yes. It's all about smells with me.
Yeah. There seems to be a common
There's a
theme.
theme.
Yeah. So does that theme go into any extracurricular hobbies that you may have?
Smelling as a hobby.
Do you go beyond this in terms of hobbies? What's one thing you may do?
I like baking. That's something
Okay.
that I've gotten
So
into
sort of
recently.
similar.
So smelling, yes, with that.
Yeah.
I also love to rock climb. Oh, I think my mic is off. There we
you
go. I love to rock climb. I love yoga. I like to run. So a lot of extracurricular non-smelling activities as well.
It's good. It's good to have variety.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you
Thank
very
you so
much. Now I would like to welcome Karen Arcos.
We all use our memories on a daily basis. Let's give yours a try. Do me a favor and close your eyes until I ask you to reopen them. What is 2 plus 5 plus 8 plus 10 plus 15? Feel free to open your eyes again. Here are the numbers you just took a stab at solving. Isn't adding them easier now that you can see them? As a sighted person, you can look at the numbers and add them rather than keeping them all in your head at the same time. As a blind person, however, we don't have this luxury when math is presented to us in less usable formats. In cases like these, someone who's blind would probably listen and add as you did now. This begs the question of what role senses play when we're learning new information. Adults who are sighted and blind completed tasks similar to what you just did now. Everyone heard lists of numbers while under blindfold. They then typed in the numbers they heard in the same order. Sighted participants repeated the task while seeing new lists of numbers. Blind participants also repeated the task while reading numbers in Braille. Braille is a written code for the blind in which raised dot patterns felt with the fingertips represent characters. Who remembered more? As shown in dark blue bars, sighted participants remembered more numbers when seeing them than when hearing them. This may be because they use their sense of vision more often than their sense of hearing. On the other hand, blind participants remembered roughly the same amount of numbers, whether they read them in Braille or heard them. This is probably because blind individuals use their sense of sound and touch more equally. The senses that you use to take in your surroundings influence your learning, no matter how much you can see. Most information you take in is done so using one sense, vision. Why not use your other senses to keep your memory going? Read text aloud in order to hear it and see it. That way, you'll prevent costly diseases like Alzheimer's from developing and solve future math problems more easily. Thank you.
Well done. So, Karen, let's get to know you a little bit more. Did you always want to be in research?
No, I knew that I wanted to go into psychology, but not necessarily research.
So psychology was what you originally were interested in.
To help people, yes.
So how did you end up here?
Through a professor that I interacted with as an undergraduate. He taught learning and memory, and I became really interested in learning and in trying to understand how different people learn information.
Awesome. So when you're not learning about learning, what are you doing? Do you have any hobbies?
Yes, I do. I really enjoy hiking. I really enjoy baking, so similar to the other presenter.
See, we may need to start some kind of baking club.
For sure.
As long as
That'd
the
be
things are
fun.
smelling good while we're baking, I think we'll be fine. Yes, excellent. And then if you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go?
I would go to Mauritius. It's a small island surrounded by the Indian Ocean where my dad came from, and I really enjoy that place. It's so nice. The ocean is amazing. It's beautiful. It's clear, unlike the oceans here. You can see the water. It's transparent.
Awesome.
Awesome place.
All right. Well, thank you very, very much. Next, I would like to welcome Jessica Howard to the stage.
We often see the scientific advancements of the future in the fiction of the present. For example, I'm sure everyone here at some point has seen a crime show where the cops could catch the perpetrator of the crime. If only they could enhance that blurry image of a license plate. They bring this request down to the forensic scientist in the lab, and with a few keystrokes, that blurred image becomes completely legible. Now, this sounds crazy. How can you regain the lost information in those blurred pixels? Well, thanks to machine learning, a branch of artificial intelligence, this might not be so far-fetched. By artificially blurring high-resolution images, computer scientists can create pairs of low and high-resolution images. They can then train a machine to learn the mapping between these images, so that given a blurry low-resolution image, the machine can tell you what the most likely high-resolution version is. This amazing technology has had unprecedented success on these artificial examples, but I would like to take it further. I am a particle physicist. I study the high-speed collisions of fundamental particles to learn more about the way our universe works. To do this, we use massive detectors that act like cameras and take pictures of these collisions. Now, these detectors are very intricate, which means it's both time-consuming and costly to make improvements. In fact, the last time this detector shut down for improvement, 2 years, and cost over $150 million. But what if we didn't have to do this? What if we could get a free upgrade? Using high-fidelity simulations, I can create examples of data from low and high-resolution detectors. My computer science colleagues and I can then train a machine to learn the mapping from our current low-resolution detector to an arbitrarily high-resolution version. This will allow us to see the data more clearly, which means we can measure these particle collisions more precisely. Doing this will let us easily detect signs of new physics that are currently out of our reach. What's more, this will be one of the first realistic applications of this super-resolution technology, pushing the limits of this technology's capabilities and leading to improvements in the method that make it more robust. In short, this concept from a weeknight crime show can help us unlock currently unattainable secrets of the universe and may have profound effects on our everyday life. Thank you.
So what got you interested in particle physics?
A really amazing teacher in undergrad.
Really?
Yeah, it's actually very interesting. Growing up, I didn't really have a concept of what a scientist was. There weren't a lot of science resources there. So I kind of had the idea of research in my head, but didn't have a name for it. I was very curious and very interested in asking questions, but my first physics professor in undergrad is what got me into research.
And so what do you hope to do maybe in the future?
I would love to become a professor and also inspire the next generation of physicists.
That would be awesome. So when you're not inspiring other people, what are maybe some of your hobbies that you'll be doing?
So I'm fairly artistic, so I love drawing and painting and sewing and everything crafty. So.
Excellent. And then you can have the food from the baking while you're creating.
It's perfect.
And we can do an entire session together.
We should create a club. I
Excellent.
love it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, I would like to welcome Jenny Wu.
What if someone tells you that you can get rid of your stress and worries in just 7 days? Well, as someone who studies the development of human emotions, I would say that it's too good to be true. And here's why. Unlike curing for a disease or creating a device that, say, gets rid of bad air pollutants, there is no such thing as permanently wiping out our emotions. And as Dr. Susan David, the award-winning psychologist, once said, not wanting to deal with your negative emotions is a dead person's goal. Emotions are neurobiologically embedded in how we work, play, learn, and love. It's the compass that guides us in pursuing the goals and relationships that we care deeply about. And this makes emotions arguably the essence that make each and every one of us human and in turn humanizes what we do. Yet in my research, I've found that we've been teaching our children and ourselves to approach emotions like road construction. We're taught to suppress and deny the bad emotions because they are judged to be socially unacceptable, and we must tuck away the sad emotions. Just put on that Band-Aid and suck it up. And if we're feeling elated and proud, we must also remember to tone it down. And we must continue to learn to be mindful on being mindful. We're proceeding with caution just in case if something bad happens. Now, in my work with children and professionals alike, I've found that this ongoing road construction to becoming immune to emotions to be unsustainable. Sooner or later, we experience demotivation and burnout by the piles of unattended emotional baggage. And you know what else? A recent study found that children today have a diminished ability to recognize other people's emotions because of the decrease in face-to-face interactions. So to help, I've developed a scalable 6-week program along with peer-based learning games to help students develop these often neglected social-emotional skills to be able to recognize themselves, understand who they are, and understand each other. I'm happy to say that my program and games are making an impact here with our UCI undergraduates, and I've applied and received a grant to work across campus and with other UC campuses to be able to disseminate this research, especially for underrepresented and transfer students. Now, ultimately, my goal is to equip our next generations with these important life skills to become productive and compassionate people that our world needs.
So what got you started on this journey of investigating emotions?
It's a long story. Where to start? I think it always starts within, with yourself. As a first generation to graduate college and attend grad schools, I think it's sort of that supportive relationship I've had to see me through all the hardships and emotional journey, ups and downs. And so I think just from that, I realized how important it is. It's not just the sheer knowledge, but it's really understanding who you are and what you want and what makes you flourish as a human being, I guess.
Yeah.
And so here I am.
So what's been one of the most rewarding parts of your journey so far?
It's my undergraduate students. I just want to give them a shout out. You know, it's about walking the talk, right? Here I am teaching them about the emotional journey. And so they really inspire me to actually be here to walk the talk and to embark on this journey together and have the courage to do it.
Awesome. And then if you could invite 3 people to dinner, who would you pick?
And so this is like alive or dead.
You can pick alive or dead. You
And
have
assuming I
a
can speak the
superhero
language.
power here. Yes. Who would you pick?
So it's going to be a little weird.
That's good.
I've been thinking about this. Something it reminded me. So my dad came from sort of like a blue-collar working background, and he actually left his family. He's the oldest of 5 boys. Left his family at, I think it was around 4, to live with his grandparents, and never saw his family again until he was 18. And then his grandparents passed away. I never got to meet them. And so I just thought it would be kind of cool to put them together. And something about being able to have somebody else to talk about your childhood, the artifacts of who you were, and to hear it as a daughter. That's only 2 people, I guess, but...
You can be there, Sue. And
3 people.
3 people. That is 3 people.
That is 3 people. Oh, you mean like...
Who else do you want there then?
So this is really bizarre, okay? I've just been really interested in memoirs, but from third-party informants. Albert Einstein's wife.
Excellent.
Because she was an amazing physicist, and she actually had some profound impact, but you never hear about these stories. And I also want to know how Albert Einstein was behind the scenes.
I'll serve, and then I can listen in.
Awesome.
Excellent. Thank you very much. His wife. Albert Einstein's wife. Now, I would like to welcome to the stage Darby Vickers. They simply won't budge. So what is it that we can do about this problem? Well, part of the problem is that fake news isn't new. In fact, there's a famous case of fake news since the Renaissance. However, the problem has gained new virulence, like a virus in a new environment, in the age of social media. Social media allows us to spread misinformation to hundreds, thousands, or even millions of people with the simple click of a button. But the problem isn't that the news spreads. The problem is that people believe it and they allow it to influence their decisions. For example, in 2016, my slide won't go. Sorry. In 2016, there was a survey of American adults showing that 40% were global warming deniers, 30% didn't believe Obama's birth certificate was a fake, and 5% believed in the moon landing. These decisions have lasting consequences for the way that people make political decisions. The usual way that we confront this is something called the evidence dump, where we dump lots of contrary evidence onto the person. However, the problem is that if you've done this with your friend or relative on Facebook, you know that it doesn't work. So what does work? My research is looking at why people continue to believe false information in the face of overwhelming evidence. And so why doesn't evidence solve the problem? First, beliefs form interconnected structures of meaning in our minds. And these meanings are like ecosystems, such that only beliefs that are compatible with those ecosystems will continue to grow. Misinformation is like weeds. If you don't pull it out by the roots, it continues to recur. So we have to be able to get over the weed by not just driving over it with a truck of contrary evidence, but rather we need to be able to take that belief out from the roots. The second problem is declining trust in academic expertise. Declining trust in academic expertise, there's been a 9-point drop across the political spectrum over the last 3 years. One way of trying to fix this is by showing the relationship between belief formation and trust. What my research will do is to create a curriculum which will teach people how to have will have information literacy and the critical thinking skills that will allow them to weed out their own ecosystems and will also allow them to build trust with that friend on Facebook. Imagine a Facebook in which it was full of critical thinkers. Thank you. So were you always interested in how people think? To a large extent, yes. I always knew that I wanted to go into some kind of research and find a way to more deeply investigate the world. But I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I started off being interested in doing astrophysics, and then I wanted to work for the CDC, and it wasn't for a long time that I came in and decided to look at philosophy. Wow. So it's been a little bit of a detour here. Yeah, I mean, this started when I was very young.
Sure, okay, so it's been a journey.
So it's been a journey, but yeah, I eventually got to where I am today.
And what's been one of the most rewarding parts of your journey so far?
Well, actually, I was able on February 8th and 9th to run a conference, an interdisciplinary conference, where I brought together people from philosophy, cognitive science, archaeology, education, and a number of different disciplines to talk about the problem of misinformation in the age of social media and try to figure out solutions to it. And that's part of the research that's being done for the curriculum that I will be creating.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was a really rewarding experience.
So when you're not trying to get everyone in a room talking and critically thinking, what's maybe one of your fun hobbies that you
I have hobbies that are fairly similar to a lot of the people. I like yoga and baking, but actually one of the things that I've done is I created a podcast on the Odyssey with a friend of mine who's in the audience tonight named Sarah Rodriguez, who's an MFA at UCI. And we created this to try to give the Odyssey a millennial spin and give people a way to access the text, because it's such a fundamental piece of Western literature, but it's sometimes kind of foreign to the people that are reading it.
I may have listened to a few of those episodes. I'm just
glad
letting
to
you
hear
know.
it.
And they're awesome. You should all check it out. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Now I would like to welcome Rebecca Riley.
Tell you about something you've probably never heard of, that nobody's ever seen, and that we know almost nothing about, yet without which you wouldn't exist. In the dark corners of the universe lurks a type of matter so secretive, so invisible, that we only see how it affects the movements of massive galaxies. We can't see it because it doesn't reflect or emit light, but this matter makes up a vast amount of the universe. Physics can explain everything from the smallest atoms to the largest superclusters. Yet all of this represents only 15% of the matter in the universe. The other 85%, the cosmic seeds that birthed all the beauty we see in the universe today, including you, is dark matter. As a theoretical particle physicist, I want to know what dark matter is, where it came from, and how it behaves. In the models that I study, dark matter particles that wander too close to each other can gobble each other up, annihilating and producing two new particles called leptoquarks. Leptoquarks are rare, heavy particles that, if we were to find them, could not only help us understand dark matter, but could also move us closer to a theory of everything with a single unifying mother force. Now, leptoquarks are too big to stick around for long, and they quickly fragment into regular matter particles and radiation. These fragments are the key to piecing together a picture of dark matter. Now, while we can't see dark matter, detecting the regular matter and radiation it fractures into isn't a problem. In neighboring galaxies, like Andromeda, with lots of dark matter, these annihilations would happen all of the time, and we would get incriminating particle debris on Earth, which we can pick up with satellites and telescopes. Now, much like the pieces of a broken plate would look different than those of a broken vase, these particle remnants provide an incriminating fingerprint of the dark matter that they came from. It's my job to put the pieces back together and craft a portrait of dark matter. Now, while I would love to tell you that this is the answer, I have to be honest. This idea is only one of many possibilities. So why keep studying these fundamental mysteries? Einstein had his own perspective on this. He admonished, "Curiosity has its own reason for existence. One cannot help but to be in awe when he contemplates the mysteries of eternity. It's enough to simply comprehend a little of this mystery each day." Thank you.
So when did you know that you were intrigued by space?
So I have always been intrigued by space. I did not always know that I wanted to be an academic. I was a huge reader when I was young, and I was always reading about astronauts and stars and the solar system. And to be honest with you, I did not know that being a scientist was a career. Yes,
It is.
Free, truly. I actually thought that people who went out for PhDs just solely wanted to be called doctor. I didn't know that there was any other reason that you would possibly want to get a PhD. And it was not until quite late when in my undergrad career that I knew that this was what I wanted to do.
And when you started, what's been one of the most fun parts of your journey so far?
Gosh, I think one of the most fun parts for me is that every single day I get to read something that just lights me up. Like, I think people would walk by and be like, wow, she must have just read something really amazing, because I did, and it just shows over my whole body.
And so, going with the we don't know a lot theme, what's one thing many people don't know about you?
Oh, good question. Well, I do advertise this quite a lot, but you know, the audience that doesn't know me, they wouldn't know. My dream is to be an astronaut. So I spend a lot of time working toward that.
Excellent. Well,
Yeah.
we all will say we knew you when. Thank you
Yes,
very much.
Thank you.
Now I would like to welcome Ying Zhu.
Kids love TV, and they spend hundreds of hours a year watching it. That's why we invest so much money and effort in creating high-quality programs. But the educational potential of this program, if children just passively sit in front of a screen. So here's the challenge. How can we get kids actively engaged in learning if TV is traditionally a one-way medium? 2 years ago, while watching my young son talk with Siri on my iPhone about the solar system, a light bulb went off in my head. I thought to myself, now that conversational agents like Siri can understand and respond to human language, why not use the same artificial intelligence to make TV more interactive so that kids can talk with and learn from their favorite characters? And now, I'm proud to be leading the first project in the world to make this happen. I'm partnering with PBS Kids to develop conversational videos for the new science show, Eleanor Wonders Why. The videos are powered by an AI-based agent that allows kids to speak directly with the show's main character, Eleanor, as she explores everyday science mysteries. The conversations prime kids to engage in observation, prediction, pattern finding, and problem solving. And most importantly, Eleanor listens understands and responds to children. She praises children's ideas and provides hints when children need help. This kind of two-way conversation is the key to getting kids excited about science. I've tested these conversational videos with preschool children from diverse local communities, including with kids who have few home resources for early science education. It is so rewarding to see my research is working that kids love talking with Eleanor about science and come away wanting to learn more. And thankfully, these children are not the only ones excited about this innovation. The National Science Foundation, PBS, and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting have all shown enthusiastic support for this pioneering research. With their partnership, we are on the cusp of being able to bring this kind of engaged learning to millions of children and empower the next generation of scientists. Hey, Eleanor, don't you think that is a great idea?
Yes, I think so too.
Thank you.
So I know what got you interested in this project, but what got you interested in pursuing PhD?
Yeah, so I grew up in a research university community, and both my parents are in the research field. So I kind of have an idea when I was very young that doing research is something really cool. Yeah, but it wasn't until I graduated from college that I realized that I wanted to do research in education. So I got a job to design educational software for kids. And then I learned that there was just so much potential in educational technology, but there is also so much room for improvement. So we really need to understand how kids learn and what they like, how they improve, in order to decide something that fits their needs.
Absolutely. And so if you could have 3 people over for dinner, who would you pick and why?
Yes, 3 people is a great number because I have 2 kids and I would also like to invite my husband. So actually, my older son is here, my husband is over there.
Thank you. Excellent. Well, we look forward to having a wonderful dinner together. Thank you. All right. Now, last but certainly not least, I would like to welcome to the stage Damie Huat.
I don't know if any of you have noticed this, but I'm a tiny person. And that's why I'm not really a fan of one-size-fits-all clothing, because it's designed to fit everyone, but doesn't actually fit anyone. Ironically enough, this is what we do for cancer treatments today. Today, scientists have discovered many successful treatments for cancer, but the problem is that these treatments, such as physically removing the tumor through surgery or chemically through chemotherapy, take again this one-size-fits-all approach. This assumes that all tumors are the same, when in fact, each patient, each tumor, and each diagnosis is unique. That's why even after these harsh and invasive treatments, patients with advanced stages of cancer still have less than a 40% chance of survival. So while we have advanced greatly in this field, I believe that we could still do better. Immunotherapy has the potential to replace these current treatments. Immunotherapy can enhance your own immune system to target and recognize cancer cells. But the only problem with this therapy today is that cancer cells are composed of many, many different types of cells, which can give off different signals for the immune cells. So the immune cells get confused, and so each cancer cell can give off a different signal or direction to these immune cells, which, like in a relationship, if there are way too many conflicting signals, then the immune cells either completely miss the point or they target only a portion of the tumor. This unfortunately allows the remaining cancer cells to regrow and recreate new tumor. My research is focused on personalizing immunotherapy by collecting both cancer cells and immune cells from the same patient and growing them together. By growing them together, I can find the best method for treating the immune cells to target all of the cancer cells in the patient's body. So, if I'm able to find the best method, then we can find the best way to find each cancer cell in the patient. The next method is to test whether or not I've trained my immune cells well enough. And because we can't just inject these immune cells back into the patient and call it a day, the HEAS lab has created a device that mimics the human body's environment. This environment is composed of blood vessels, which you can see here in red, and tumor, which you can see here in blue. The blood vessels create a roadway for both nutrients and now my newly trained immune cells to reach the tumor. So if all goes well, we can see if the immunotherapy has worked by slowly watching the tumor shrink in size. I believe that this research can pave the way towards an immunotherapy that's tailored to each patient and can bring us that much closer to eliminating cancer for good. Thank you.
So, I think you know where I'm going with this.
It might be where I started with research, right?
Give me that.
So I actually didn't know that I wanted to do research for the longest time. And when I was in undergrad, I had this awesome professor that just kind of like nailed the hammer in. And she told me to take this course called Discovering Antibiotics, which is basically a course where you're doing bacteria work.
Sure.
And honestly, I loved the course so much that it made me realize that I really wanted to do research in the future. Now, this is only my first year doing research, but I'm really excited about it and excited about where it'll take me in the future.
Yeah, I think you're doing well.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, when you're not doing research, what is one of your hobbies?
Well, my family is usually called the singing family. So I like to perform and sing and dance a lot. I play guitar.
Do you all do it together?
Actually, yeah, we do.
Really?
We do. That's like our, other people, cook with each other or like.
You
do other
perform
things.
together?
Yeah, we perform together.
They didn't come tonight.
My
Mingle,
dad's here.
mix, and then maybe ask for a performance. Thank you very much. I see you. All right, let's give these amazing speakers one more round of applause. Every year, it just gets better. All right, judges, if you can please now make your way back to the deliberation room, we will finish adding up the scores. And now I would like to welcome back the wonderful Dean Hayes to the stage.
Thank you so much, Bree. Let's give those amazing presenters another round of applause. I gotta tell you, a couple decades after my dissertation, I still don't think I could summarize it in 2 minutes as well as they just did with their work. So that's really impressive. Thank you. So the judges have a very tough job in front of them, and we want to entertain you while they're doing their tough job. So it is my pleasure to be able to introduce to you Dr. Daniel Aldrich III.
What's going to happen while everyone finishes
Bree,
tallying
your
up the
mic is on.
scores
Bree,
is,
we're gonna stop. No! I'm just gonna keep making noise until she stops. Okay. I just didn't want her to say something that we don't want anyone to hear. Okay. Hot mics are never good. She didn't go to the bathroom, so we have that going for us. So, first of all, Daniel Aldrich III has been I mean, such a force for the University of California system. He has retired recently, sort of. He's obviously still here. He's not very good at retiring. But he served the UC system for 30 years. He was a variety of senior administrative positions at Santa Cruz, Riverside, as well as the Irvine campus here, and centrally at the Office of the President. I don't know if there's a lot of other folks that have served that many campuses and that many roles, so we really appreciate the heart and soul. You also may have noticed his name is Aldrich. Yes, that is the same Aldrich of Aldrich Hall and Aldrich Park. He is the son of UCI's founding chancellor. He also received his bachelor's degree from UC Davis and both a master's and PhD from UCLA. So he's pretty UC through and through. He is a Vietnam-era veteran and also has served as a reservist until an honorable discharge as a captain. So professionally, he's done all kinds of things, including overseeing the development of fundraising efforts. He has helped us secure more than $500 million in private support for the university. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Yes, let's thank him for that. And he's won a wide variety of awards, and yet still, with all of those things, graces us with his presence regularly. One of my favorite things about Dan is that he knows our campus through and through, and in fact stood probably on this land, I'm guessing, when bison were still roaming here as a small child, and helped sort of oversee what we would become. And when I think about how proud I am to be at this wonderful university, I think about the history that you've been a part of. So thank you, Dan. Come on up and tell us some good stories.
Well, first of all, let me say that I was never a small child. In fact, I have to tell you, and I think you can hear me. I would rather do it out here. Can you hear me all right? Yes. Well, it's a delight to be here, and I quite frankly hail in the capacity to speak cogently with you after the fine talks by our group of 10 presenters. They are superb. But I would like to say one other thing, or a couple of other things, and that is, number one, what they represent is the essence of what my father wanted to have happen here on this piece of land. In 1961, in December of 1961, my family, my younger sister and brother and mother, we came down a two-lane highway, which was known as MacArthur Boulevard. And in that process, and I'm not kidding you, it was a two-lane highway, we came up on some hills that are just right back over here, San Joaquin, Santa Ana Valley Hills, etc. And we looked out. It was a gray day, a gray December day after Christmas. And we looked out, and the only thing that we saw out across the Santa Ana Valley at that time were the two blimp hangars, the lighter than air facilities. That was the only thing that was here.
The district.
That's the history. That's the history. And in fact, the reality of life is that, oh, you really do need
I can't hear you in the back.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway, the fact is that as we came down and opened a cattle gate, and literally came out of down through the cattle gate to Pointed here, which is actually out somewhere in the middle of Aldrich Park, up above Aldrich Park, and looked out across that, there were actually bison. And the reason there is a thing called the road bison is that there were actually bison that actually grazed these hills, as well as cattle, etc. But there was nothing else here. And my father looked at my mother and said to my mother and me and my younger sister and brother, "What do you think about coming here?" I said to my dad, "Dad, you can do whatever you want to do. I'm going to UC Davis in the fall." So I wasn't exactly a little boy at the time. But at the same time, I actually thought I wanted to go into large-scale ranch management at the time, and that's why I went to UC Davis. And learned at a later point in life that what I thought I wanted to do wasn't exactly what I was going to do, because to become a large-scale ranch manager, you had to inherit it or marry it, and that wasn't going to be happening for me. So as a result, I didn't end up in that particular profession at all. But I was excited about the fact at the time that I was going to go to Davis, and I felt that it was something that my family could do in terms of them coming here and me going there. My sister, on the other hand, who was 3 years younger than I, broke down and cried. She said, "Why would we come here? There is absolutely nothing here." And she said, "Why would we leave Berkeley?" Because we lived in Berkeley at the time. My younger brother, who was 3 years younger than she, actually didn't give a rip. And he was playing in the rocks and cactus that were around at that particular time. And our dog, which was with us at the same time, just loved it, just ran around wildly. But that was the essence of what was here. And what has since then emerged because of an incredible aggregation of people, talented faculty, talented staff, and a caring community that then evolved into what is now, quite frankly, and I don't think I speak with hyperbole here, into the finest research university that has been created in this country, at least, since the 1950s. UCI is an incredible reflection of what these young people here tonight demonstrate in terms of what wanted to be created here in the very first place. That is an institution that cared about bringing to pass not only the talents of young people that might not otherwise have the opportunity to pursue and develop their talents, but to bring those talents into personal relationships in terms of the service of the societies in which we live. And in that context, I have to tell you, that and that alone is something which my father, even though he would now be 101 years old and not with us, the reality is that he would be so proud of everybody that's in this audience that pursues those very goals, because that is the essence of what graduate and undergraduate education is. That's what the essence is in terms of the opportunities that this institution provide for and the faculty and staff that populate it bring to pass and make this a better place. That is Orange County, the state of California, and the world in which we live. So that's a little bit about the background and history and why it's a delight for me to be able to come here, be with you, and share some of that historical background. The second thing is they asked me tonight to talk about some of the things about who was Daniel G. Aldrich Jr. And Daniel G. Aldrich Jr. was a very interesting cat. He actually was a soil chemist. And his first work was actually done. He was the first one to, some of you may not realize, but soil is a very dynamic situation. Some people call it dirt, okay, but it's soil, okay? And soil has all sorts of interesting materials in it. And there are different types of soils, for some of you that may not know that. There is things called clay soils, and clay soils are very densely packed soils. And they're held together, and some of you may realize, some of you who are chemists, etc., may realize that there's an anion-cation bonding of clay particles together that tightly bring things together. And sometimes there are alkalis, or there are also salts that build and bind those things together. And that's what makes clay soils very dense and also many times very non-arable, or that is, you can't grow things because they can't break them up. Well, my father's work, and he was a land-grant college production. He did his undergraduate work at the University of Rhode Island, then did his master's degree at the University of Arizona, and did his PhD at the University of Wisconsin. But in those days, they didn't understand how to effectively break down clay soils. And so he was one of the first, and his PhD work was done in looking at using X-ray diffraction in terms of how one could be able to break down the cation-anion bonds in those clay soils. And the work that he did then resulted in coming, when he finished his PhD at the University of Wisconsin, he then was hired at that time, and I'm going to tell you the interesting thing, is that he was hired by what was then the University of California's Citrus Experiment Station, which is now the University of California at Riverside. And he came to that Citrus Experiment Station, and his work then became a part of then the reclaiming of soils in the Coachella and Imperial Valley, and also down the entire San Joaquin, southwest side of the San Joaquin Valley. his work and those of others then enabled the breaking up of clay soils to make what is now one of the breadbaskets of the entire state of California, and that is the Imperial Coachella Valley and that which is the west side of the San Joaquin Valley. So the wonderful young woman who spoke about the interesting cattle effluent, okay, or dairy effluent, some of that work, okay, is done in a region that was reclaimed, which had largely large salts and selenium issues and a whole host of other things. They were transformed into something that became then an arable source of production for the people of not only this state. This state is one of the largest producers economically of foodstuffs for the entire country and the world at large. But my dad got to play a lot of in that whole realm. He loved agriculture. I mean, his dream was to be a head of agriculture, and he was statewide dean of agriculture, the first statewide dean of agriculture for the UC system, when the UC system came into being. And from a historical standard, many people don't realize it. I bet you think, or many of you out there think that Berkeley is the oldest campus. I bet you don't know which was the second oldest campus of the University of California. Does anybody want to? What? Davis. Aha, very good. Somebody knows. Somebody knows. What would you think is the third campus of the University of California that actually thinks? You haven't heard some of the things that you would thought would. What do you think is the third oldest campus of the UC system? Wrong. Wrong. Riverside, okay? Riverside is actually in that hunting thing. UCLA is a Johnny-come-lately. They're baby Bruins, okay? They didn't come about until about 1917. The others were like 1906, 1908, okay? But then we have two people here that are astronomers or astrophysicists, I think, that I've seen in this thing. But one of the amazing stories of history in the University of California, one of the presidents of the University of California gave up being president to become then the head of this unique and special astronomical observatory. And that's the Lick Observatory on Mount Hamilton that's up above San Jose, California. And Mount Hamilton was the first mountaintop observatory ever created in the United States, all right? And so that was actually created in 92, all right? And Lick Observatory actually was the second thing, and a president of the university gave up the presidency of the University of California to become the director of Lick Observatory, which, as I said, was the first mountaintop observatory. And many of the things we talked about, particle detection, okay? One of the very interesting things is that at UC Santa Cruz, where there is then the head of UCO Lick Observatories, which engages not only Mount Hamilton, but the Keck 10-meter telescopes on Mauna Kea and Hawaii, and a whole host of other things. But they have used all sorts of interesting things to address the issues of being able to look observationally into space using adaptive optics, all right, and a whole host of other things that make that mountaintop observatory, which has a very small telescope in a certain sense, only a 3-meter, but still a very effective research instrument beyond that, which is the Keck telescopes. And quite frankly, one of the thrills of my life is that I helped then raise money for the high-res and a whole variety of other interesting optical things for that which then became the 10-meter telescopes on the top of Mauna Kea in Hawaii. So it's been a very exciting thing. And when we had another person say that she wanted to be an astronaut, okay, I'm just here to tell you that there are UC people who have become astronauts, and actually women who have become astronauts. Catherine Sullivan, some of you may know, who actually was an astronaut. She's a graduate of UC Santa Cruz, and she went on to then create the activity that resulted in the unblinding of that which was the Hubble telescope. When the Hubble telescope originally went up, and I don't know how much the audience knows about the Hubble telescope, but the Hubble telescope had a flaw in it. And a woman scientist by the name of Sandra Faber at UC Santa Cruz helped then correct and develop the optics that were then going to be able to correct it. And then two people from UC Santa Cruz became astronauts, Catherine Sullivan and a young man became, and they went up in the space shuttle and actually then did a spacewalk to correct the optics of the Hubble telescope so that it would become the research instrument that it has been, and has outlived its research life by eons and eons. So that integrates a number of the things that you all have seen here tonight, but also speaks to the importance of, again, what is graduate education, undergraduate education, and to be able to have the capacity to think beyond where one is today and do the things that you really want to help society become in the future. Now, getting back to my father, the last little thing is, my father was an incredible competitor, and he didn't like to be last in anything. He hated it, to be perfectly frank. He actually really thought he wanted to be somebody who, he was a track and field person. He actually had the longest discus throw in the world in 1939. You know that things happened in 1939, and so we did not have an Olympics in 1940. That was something that did not happen. And my father always wanted to be an Olympic athlete. He didn't get that chance to a certain degree, but he and a group of men here, not only in Newport Beach, but also in California, created the Masters Track and Field Championships and the Senior Olympics movement in the late 50s and early 60s. And there's still something here at UCI called the Daniel G. Aldrich Relays. And they are track and field meet each year. But my dad, after he came here, he would spend, unlike others who would perhaps have lunch or other sorts of things, he would come over to then what is now, which was became Crawford Hall, and he would do two things. Either play tennis with the likes of, I think there's a gentleman here that, or was here earlier on, Spence Olin. He used to play tennis with Spence Olin, but then he also played with another young faculty member who won a Nobel Prize, and that was Sherry Rowland, who some of you may or may not know, won the Nobel Prize for he and his graduate student, Dr. Molina, then solved the issue of the chlorofluorhydrocarbon issue and the impact on the ozone layer. But they would either play tennis or my father would work out throwing the discus, the javelin, the hammer, or the shot put. Well, they used to have a major track and field meet up at Walnut, California, at the community college there, and they would attract university level talent from all over the state of California and beyond. I mean, they would have major people coming in from across the country because it was a major, because of the way in which the discus throwing event was set up. If you can throw a discus, if you know what a discus is, does everybody know what a discus is? Okay, sometimes I speak and say things that maybe not everybody's comprehend, but a discus is that round disc, and if you throw it into the wind, if the wind is right, it keeps the edge up, and if the edge is up, like a plane wing for as you fly, then if you have enough force behind it, it will fly farther because it's got weight, but if you can keep it up in the air, it'll lift and roll out further. So at the particular track meet, lots of people who were world record holders would come to this particular track meet to then compete. Well, there was a gentleman who competed in the 48 and 52 Olympics, and this gentleman won medals, either bronze or silver or gold. And so my dad tried to convince him, as he convinced the track team or track meet officials, that there ought to be a senior Olympic opportunity or senior master track and field opportunity at this particular thing. So he wanted to throw at this thing and entice this gentleman to come out so he could compete against the man who won a medal, and then he could resolve his problem, okay, of never having competed against in an Olympic situation. Well, in the first adventure of this situation, he went out, and the gentleman whose son actually threw discus at UCLA as well, he came out. He was sort of in the audience, or in the audience watching, and my dad and others got out and threw, and he wasn't set up to do this thing. And my dad really needled him, said that he really needed to get his act together and try and get himself into shape and compete. And he said, well, no way that anybody could beat him anyway, even though my dad was at that time in his late 50s and early 60s. And so he said, well, let me just get into the ring and I'll flip one out and beat everybody here. Well, the reality that was, he did, and my father said, well, that was a very nice effort, but the reality of life is I'll get in the ring and beat you. And he said there was no way, no how. And my dad got into the ring and flipped the discus out and beat him by 2 feet. And that really irritated him. And so the gentleman said, well, he hadn't trained, done anything like this, etc. He said, we'll do this again next year. And my dad said, absolutely, look forward to it. So in that competitive spirit that said, you're going to be number one, as this institution has become a number one, okay, my dad came back and started pushing weights, training even harder, okay? And the next year rolls around, and this fine gentleman shows up, and he's now dressed in track attire. He's ready to rip, okay? He's going to kick my dad's rear end. Well, the reality is he gets in the ring, and they get a series of throws. He throws out, and first he's beating my dad. Final throw, my dad gets out there. He beats him by 1.5 inches and just absolutely crushes this guy. And so that was now you would think that becoming a chancellor and doing a whole host of other things would be a great thrill. That was my dad's major thrill in life, I got to tell you, in terms of just a little historical footnote. Beating a person who competed in the Olympics, he achieved a goal. So the reality of life is you never know when you're going to get your thrill in life, and keep it moving forward. You never know when in staying in shape and eating right, thinking right, and doing and following your passions, you too will achieve goals that you never thought you would be able to do. Time out, I'm told. Are they ready to rock and roll? I could have gone out. You could have. I was just telling you to go. So, anyway, thank you very much.
We got a bribe. So a huge thank you to Dan. I learned something new every time he speaks. I had not heard that story about the Olympics before. I will not be challenging any Olympic competitors, just in case you were concerned. But I also learned about a discus, and I'm pretty sure it's dark matter from what we learned earlier. I don't know. But I'm very glad to see that our judges have returned from their incredibly difficult job. Although there she is. And we'll have Bree come back and take us on to the awards portion of this evening.
So I want to say that no matter the outcome of tonight, I think everyone in this room will agree that we were all genuinely impressed and inspired by all of your work and hearing about your amazing research. So thank you for coming and sharing this with us, because it really is a joy to be able to learn from people like you. So thank you. If Dean Hayes can please come back to the stage, center stage. Now, before we announce the top three, We would like to congratulate all of you and present you with a certificate of recognition for competing at tonight's Grad Slam. So as I call your name, you will receive your certificate, take a lovely photo op, and then go to the edge of the stage and we will take a group photo at the end. So, Nia North. Yeah. Amanda McQuaid. Brenna Biggs. Karen Arcos. Jessica Howard. Jenny Wu. Darby Vickers. Rebecca Riley. Ying Zhu. And Amy Huat. And then everyone please come back. And then if everyone come back down again. Thank you. It's for you.
So this is all very official, you'll notice. I have sealed pieces here. All right, thank you. I don't know if any of you noticed anything odd, by the way, about tonight's Grad Slam. Anyone? This is the first Grad Slam we've ever had with all women as our top 10. We do like men, by the way. That's just, you know. So I am very pleased to announce that our third place winner tonight is also our only master's student, Dami Huat. Congratulations. All right, number 2. Our second place winner tonight is Brenna Biggs. And finally, our first place winner, and soon to be the first place winner in the system-wide competition, Rebecca Riley. So before we let everyone go and network and mob all of these brilliant young women and ask them all of the pressing questions, I want to direct your attention to a few other things. So we do still have coffee, dessert, and wine in the back, and you can network and chat and hang out for a little bit. I also want to announce something that my staff doesn't know I'm about to do. And I did swear to them I wouldn't do these things, but I was so impressed with these competitors tonight. Everyone else? Yes? And I kind of think it's not fair to be that great and have only the top 3 take home some cash. Anyone else agree? So we're gonna add another $250 for every one of our top 10. The good news for me is that my head of finance is not here tonight, so we're all good. So thank you all so much. I also want to give a quick shout out to my wonderful staff who have been absolutely killing themselves for the last 2 weeks to put on, well, actually for the last several months, but really the last 2 weeks, to put on this wonderful event. And to Bree McWhorter, our fearless coach, who teaches us all how to be better communicators. Thank you, Bree. And we do have some presents for all of our wonderful judges that Rosalind and Derek are going to give you all right now. I have a very bad feeling I'm forgetting something, and I don't have my little cheat sheet up here, so. Yes, thank you. And this is why we keep Bree around. She's not only an amazing communications coach, but she remembers everything I was supposed to say. So also a quick reminder that for those of you who cannot make it to LinkedIn in San Francisco on May 8th, you can live stream and root for our hometown hero, and you can vote on May 8th. So you should vote next Tuesday, and you should also vote on May 8th. So, thank you. Can we get our judges and our competitors to stand for us all one time and give them one more last round of applause?